Metropolitan Council meeting. And before I call the meeting to order, just a little housekeeping. Although the governor has ended the peacetime emergency, there's still a pandemic and it is still causing us some concern. So we're altering from the in-person meetings to continuing for the next little while. And I've determined that we will do that under the Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021. And as usual, during this period of time, we'll not be able to take public testimony, but we encourage any public member listening that has a question to please email us at public.info@metc.state.mn.us, and we will respond quickly. And I look forward to in-person meetings in the months ahead. And as usual, we'll be doing roll calls, and roll call to get us going to establish a quorum we'll do right now. So Liz, please call the roll.
Atlas Ingebretson. Barber.
Here.
Chambliss.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Fredson.
Here.
Gonzalez. Johnson.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Lilligren.
Here.
Lindstrom.
Here.
Musset. Sterner. Bento.
Here.
Wolf. Wolf.
Here.
Zurin. And Chair Zelli.
Here, we have a quorum. First up is the agenda, and I will assume it's approved unless any council member would like to amend it, and if not, we'll march forward. All right, I think we have an agenda and the minutes, which were sent out in advance for the meeting of June 23rd, have been provided for you. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Vento moves approval of the minutes.
Thank you. Sue, is there a second?
Wolf
Fredson, Hall,
second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions, amendments? Hearing none. Liz, please call the roll.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss. Chambliss.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Okay, aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musset.
Aye.
Sterner. Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zurin.
Aye for sure.
And Chair Zelli.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Next up is the consent agenda. May I have a motion to advance and to second the consent agenda?
Wolf moves approval.
This is Sterner. I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember Sterner. And I heard another voice. Maybe that's a second. Is there a second?
Willigren
Gentle
seconds.
seconds.
We're all really timed, sync perfectly. So thank you for that. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none. Liz, you may call the roll.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Sterner. Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zurin, Zurin, Chair Zelli.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. And now we have many reports in the standing committees. And starting with the Community Development Committee, Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Community Development Committee brings 3 more items forward for consideration by the full council today. The first is business item 2021-158. It's to award $2.8 million in Livable Communities Tax Base Revitalization Account grant funds to support 13 different redevelopment sites. As council members know, the Tax-Based Revitalization Account, or TBRA, is to investigate and clean up contaminated lands or buildings in support of redevelopment of the properties. And we offer 2 funding rounds each year. This round's recommendations include 13 projects in the cities of St. Paul, South St. Paul, Minneapolis, Roseville, Plymouth, and Burnsville. Upon completion, these recommended projects are expected to result in an annual tax base increase of $3.1 million. They'll also create over 800 new and preserved affordable housing units, which include 110 units of affordable housing to households earning below 30% of the area median income, 286 units earning at 50% of the area median income, and 486 units at 60% of the area median income. It will also leverage almost $400 million in private investment. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council award 13 tax-based revitalization accounts grant, as shown in Table 1 of the staff report, and also authorize its Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the Council.
Johnson seconds.
Great, thank you both. And any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. Liz?
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zurin, and Chair Zelli.
Aye, that motion carried. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, Community Development Committee brings forward business item 2021-159. It's to approve the participation in 2 new rental assistant programs in the Metro HRA. It's the Emergency Housing Voucher Program and the Foster Youth to Independence Program. The Metro AHRA recently received awards for 2 voucher programs, the 2 I just referenced, Emergency Housing Vouchers or EHVs, and the Foster Youth Independence Program or the FYI. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 included $5 billion to emergency housing vouchers, which were allocated to public housing agencies across the nation. Our HRA, the Metro HRA, received 218 vouchers and the related administration fees, along with additional non-standard funding for other eligible expenses, such as security deposit assistance and incentive fees. Emergency housing vouchers are tenant-based rent assistance for individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, or were recently homeless. Referrals for the emergency housing vouchers must come through county continuum of care coordinated entry systems. The Foster Youth to Independence Program come from the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2020, which provided $10 million of non-competitive public public housing agencies that partner with public child welfare agencies to provide rent assistance to eligible youth. HUD is investing in local cross-system collaborative efforts to prevent and end homelessness among youth with a current or prior history of child welfare involvement. The Metro HRA is eligible to request up to 25 Foster Youth to Independence vouchers. After reaching 90% utilization of the initial 25, we may request an additional 25 vouchers, not to exceed more than 50 vouchers in a fiscal year. Both of these programs require council approval for participation and to enter into the necessary agreements to operate them. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve participation in the Emergency Housing Voucher Program and authorize the Director of the Metropolitan Housing and Redevelopment Authority to negotiate and execute memorandums of understanding with Hennepin, Ramsey, and suburban metro area continuums of care. Also, to authorize the Director of the Community Development Division to negotiate and execute a joint powers agreement with the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority to allow the 2 agencies to operate in each other's service areas for the emergency housing vouchers, and also approve participation in the Foster the Youth to Independence Program, and to authorize the Director of the Metropolitan Housing Redevelopment Authority to negotiate and execute memorandums of understanding with the public child welfare agencies within our service areas. And Mr. Chair, if I can get a second, I would like to just say a quick word, if I could, please.
Chambliss
Alrighty.
seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember Chandler. And go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just really want to lift up the work of Terry Smith and her team in pursuing these additional vouchers, and also in the really embracing that tremendously collaborative way that these will be working throughout the region, starting to sort of haze boundaries a little. I think that that just really works to best serve the people that we are here to serve. And so just really want to commend our staff for their incredible commitment and innovation to this work. Thanks.
Well, and thank you for those comments, and especially the kudos to the staff that's really building on some of the collaborative work they've already been doing. But these federal funds, these opportunities are ones to really make a difference, and we're doing that. Any other comments, thoughts? All right, thanks. Liz?
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zurin, Chair Zelli.
Aye, that motion carries. On to the last item. God,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Zilligan.
Yeah, the final business item that comes forward from only Community Development Committee for action today is business item 2021-161 is to approve funding for 23 projects totaling $2,054,000 for the 2021 Regional Parks System Equity Grant Program. And council members will remember that in 2019, we established the competitive equity grant program through a pilot based on the work of the council just before us, and then we funded 3 capital projects. And this year, in response to a lot of input, we heard that we need to be going beyond capital to diversify the use of our regional parks. We made over $2 million available from council bonds and from parks interest earnings for the 2021 funding cycle. This year that we received 37 applications from the 10 regional parks implementing agencies requesting nearly $4 million. A review committee comprised of members of the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, the Community Development Committee, the Equity Advisory Committee, and implementing agency staff reviewed and scored the applications. The review team, along with the council, chose to prioritize funding equity programming this year. Among this year's recommended projects, there are 16 equity programming projects and 7 capital equity projects recommended for funding. Many of the capital projects also have strong programming components. The top ranked projects included Washington County's Parks on the Go outreach vehicle, the St. Paul Walk on Teepee Center exhibit concept plan at Bruce Vento Regional Trail, the Dakota County's Building and Bridging Community by Creating Equitable Spaces along the Mississippi River Greenway Regional Trail, and also the St. Paul BIPOC Ambassador Program. There's a full list of all of the projects recommended for funding in the staff report. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve 23 projects totaling $2,054,000 for the Regional Park System 2021 Equity Grant Program, as shown in Table 1 of the staff report, and also to authorize the Community Development Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the Council.
Right, is there a second?
Chair, I second. This is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
Thank you, and thank you for your work here. This is really another exciting program.
If
Any
I
other
could,
comments? Please.
I would love to just, I said this at CDC, and I said it at MPOSC, so I want to make sure I say it for the full council, but this is the work that has spanned multiple council cohorts. One of the best ways and most important ways we can stem the tide of undoing equity work efforts done by previous administrations is to take a look and see what they've done and to build on top of it. So this is a great example where we're continuing the equity efforts of previous council administration and building on top of it to do something that I think at one of our first council member meetings for this cohort, people talked a lot about the role that programs and people play in connecting people to the outdoors. And that is what our research has shown, and research beyond that has shown deeply. And we're finally being able to follow the intent of these original dollars to continue to increase access for undersupported and underrepresented populations in the outdoors. So I want to thank everyone who participated. We had council members who participated in that review committee, and I want to thank you for your time. We also had implementing agencies who participated in the review committee and pointed out how powerful this work has been for their agencies in creating change. And so I also want to just say a huge shout out to the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, who has been a tireless advocate for this work and really, I think, should feel really good about getting us to this point we're at today, who of course we work in partnership with. So I want to thank you all for your support. I think we have some stories that'll be coming out about this, and we've definitely been getting national recognition and are leading on the national end for this work, as other communities and states are looking to create similar types of programs, and even other agencies within our own state. So I think this is a win for us and a win for our communities, most importantly. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for those words. And really, looking at the list, you see the breadth and depth of this impact. It's really phenomenal. Hearing that, any more comments, Peter? Councilmember Lindstrom.
You can call me Peter. Uh, Anytime, Mr. Chair. I just
You can call
wanted
me
to
Mr.
say,
Chair.
there we go. So I had the pleasure of being on the review committee, and I gotta say it was one of, if not the most exciting thing that I've been a part of on this council for the last couple of years. And the reason why I say that is when you think about it, the overall chunk of change here, a couple $1 million, it's a lot of money, but it's not a ton of money. You look at the things on our agenda today, and we are approving contracts for multi-million dollars on various things. But the amount of excitement that this has generated is just tremendous. 37 different applications. It's just amazing. And I think this is really going to make a huge difference. So kudos to the implementing agencies for really following through and being very creative in their applications. And just kudos to our staff for what I thought was a very well-run process. And everybody that was involved in this.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, Liz, you call the roll.
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Abstain.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zurin, Perzeli.
Aye, that motion carries. All right, on to the Environment Committee.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Oh, please.
I just want to take a point of personal privilege here to explain my abstention, and I've done it a few times, but because of the Wakan TP Center's location and it being named after Bruce, I've abstained. While I don't believe there's any ethical questions, I just don't want to create a perception. And I want to point out that in yesterday's Star Tribune, there was a fabulous article on the front of the Metro section about the Wakan TP Center and the work that they're doing. And I just want to shout out for the amazing leaders from the Lower Failing Creek Project and the partnerships that they've made. They are an amazing organization. From day one, they have been tireless. It's been a community-driven effort. And as the Lower Failing Creek Project is currently comprised in terms of leadership, they are totally indigenous, and they have really they've become such an incredible part of not just the East Side community here in the Twin Cities, but I think the entire region. So to Maggie Lorenz and her board and staff, I just want to say kudos, and I want to thank the council for their commitment to this project. It is a really good one, and it's a beautiful location if you haven't been there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and thanks for those words and highlighting the Wakan TP project. And as you know, we're touching the project in a number of ways, including our proximity to our environmental services. But it's an important project. Many of us are involved. And Councilmember Lilligren it reminded me that there is a kind of an event coming up in September, October.
It will be on Indigenous Peoples Day, so October, what is
Oh.
it, October 11th, October 12th? And I know
October
I was kind enough to be invited in to help plan the event. So more info to come.
Stay tuned. Excellent. Thank you. All right, on to the Environment Committee. Councilmember Lilligren. Peter. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you were applauding. Oh, no problem. Okay. All right. Go
All
ahead.
right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one item for the Environment Committee dealing with the Empire Wastewater Treatment Plant, big project there. Continuing big project. And so this is business item 2021-138. And it's requesting award and execution of a construction contract at Empire, as I mentioned. This is following up on a facility plan that was first implemented or designed back in April 2013. We've gone through design phase 1 of this these facility improvements, and now we're heading into phase 2. And this is dealing with primarily with our anaerobic digestion components to Empire. So it's improvements to the complete biogas treatment to support energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, to support combined heat and power for our on-site use. And we had an invitation for bids to go out on March 25th, 2021. And we had a public bid opening on April 27th, where we received 2 bids. The Office of Equal Opportunity set a disadvantaged business enterprise goal of 9%, and a determination was made that the requirements were met for this contract. Total Mechanical Services Incorporated submitted the lowest responsive and responsible bid and is recommended for this award. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members, I move that the Met Council authorize its regional administrator to award and execute a construction contract for Empire Wastewater Treatment Plant Solids Improvements Phase 2. This is MCES project numbers 807401, contract number 20P182 with Total Mechanical for an amount not to exceed $15,665,585.70.
Wolf second.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Wolf. Any discussion? All right, Liz, you may call the roll.
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren, Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
Aye. All right, that motion carried. So there are no reports from the Management Committee, but next up is the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2021-153 involves the release of the Metro B-Line recommended corridor plan for public review and comment. The B-Line recommended corridor plan identifies station locations for the B-Line RTO bus rapid transit corridor. Recommended stations resulted from planning activities conducted through 2019 through 2021, including public outreach, engagement, interagency coordination, and system analysis. A draft version of this plan was published on February 22nd, 2021. Comments on the B-Line draft corridor plan were accepted through March 22nd, 2021, with significant communication and outreach activities conducted during the comment period. Following release of the recommended plan, staff will continue outreach and communications to engage community members around the plan, and staff will bring a final corridor plan to the council approval following the plan comment period. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize release of the Metro B line recommended corridor plan for public review and comment, and just direct staff to collect comments through Friday, August 13th, 2021, summarize comments, and report the findings to the Metropolitan Council.
Great. Is there a second?
Fredson, I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Liz?
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion carries. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2021-164 is for executing a change order with London McCrossin Joint Venture for grouting for the Kenilworth Tunnel construction. Due to the proximity to residents and active freight rail operations in the Kenilworth corridor, the project office prescribed the method of installing temporary support of excavation to minimize ground vibration by using a press and plier for sheet installation. During installation, some sheets encountered obstructions, such as boulders, which caused some sheets to defect slightly out of alignment, creating a gap between the sheets. These gaps between the sheets do not compromise the structural integrity, but do allow water and soil to infiltrate into the excavation. Over time, this infiltration can result in soil settlement if the gap in the sheeting is left unrepaired. To prevent this settlement, gaps in the grouts in the sheets will be sealed with grout through a grouting process. The scope of this change order will permit the contractor to connect grouting at locations where sheets have separated. This change order is within the scope of the Southwest LRT project and will be part of the project's budget. It includes work performed by DBE firms such that LMJV will continue to maintain a minimum 16% DBE participation for the overall contract. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to the Southwest Light Rail Transit Council authorized representative to negotiate and execute a change order for contract 15P307A with London McCrossin Joint Venture in an amount not to exceed $4,354,203.30 for grouting of the Kenilworth Tunnel construction.
Okay, is there a second?
Chambliss will second that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any discussions, questions? All right, hearing none. Liz, you may call the roll.
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion carried. Now we're on to the joint report of Environment and Community Development Committees. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The following two items are comprehensive plans for communities that are connected to the regional wastewater system. So both items were heard in both the Community Development and Environment Committees. And Mr. Chair and council members, I'll note that with the passage of these today, provided that they pass, we will have reviewed 141 comprehensive plans, which represents 84% of the required 168 comprehensive plans in the region. We have a number of plans currently in for review, so we're getting into the home stretch here on comprehensive plan approval. And Mr. Chair, with both of these items, in both cases, council staff found that these 2040 plans conform to regional systems plans. They are consistent with council policies, and they are compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. So the first is business item 2021-150. It's the Mendota Heights 2040 comprehensive plan. And approval of the comprehensive sewer plan. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the attached advisory comments and review record and take the following actions. The recommendations that came forward from Community Development Committee are to authorize the City of Mendota Heights to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect. Also to revise the city's forecast downwards as shown in Table 1 of the attached review record. Also, revise the city's affordable housing need allocation for the 2021 to 2030 decade to 46 housing units. And finally, to advise the city to adopt the Mississippi River Critical Corridor Area Plan within 60 days after receiving final DNR approval and submit a copy of the final adopted plan and evidence of adoption to the DNR, to the council, and to the National Park Service within 10 days after adoption. The recommendation from the Environment Committee is to approve the City of Mendota Heights Comprehensive Sewer Plan and to advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for wastewater services.
Second by Lee.
Thank you both. Any discussion? All right, Liz,
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli.
aye. That motion carried. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So finally, it's business item 2021-151. It's the Alco Newmarket 2040 Comprehensive Plan and approval of their comprehensive sewer plan. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the advisory comments and review record and take the following actions from the Community Development Committee. Authorize the City of Elko Newmarket to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect. Also revise the city's sanitary sewer forecast downward as shown in Table 2 of the attached review record, and to advise the city to provide the council with the dates the two watersheds approved by the city's local water management plan and the date the city adopted the final local water management plan. If the final adopted local water management plan is different than the local water management plan incorporated into this plan, and to provide the council with the final adopted plan as well, and to implement the advisory comments in the review record for wastewater service, forecasts, and water supply. The recommendation coming forward from the Environment Committee is to approve the City of Elko Newmarket's comprehensive sewer plan.
Great, thank you. And congratulations on this great progress. Is there a second?
Wolf seconds.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Liz,
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom, Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
aye. That motion carried. Thank you all. The next is other business. This is business item 21-160, participation in the Lake Street Greenway Partnership. So as chair of the Met Council, I propose that the Metropolitan Council authorize to continue the council's participation in the Lake Street Greenway Partnership. It's recently been renamed, but it is one that we've been engaged with for over 22 years. The reasonable annual fee payments to help support strategic counsel and management of the partnership. It was a Midtown Community Works Partnership that was founded 22 years ago. It was designed to integrate policy, mobilize resources, and promote community engagement in the Greenway Lake Street corridor, and it's been a valuable forum for ensuring transit and transportation related issues are incorporated in the corridor development and redevelopment discussions and planning. The Greenway Lake Street corridor experienced, as we all know, new challenges in 2020, presented by the civil unrest following the tragic murder of George Floyd. The need to rebuild these local businesses along Lake Street, a persistent increase in unhoused people seeking shelter, and an increase in the safety concerns throughout the corridor. The entities comprising the partnership are changing the name, but our current initiatives remain consistent and include the Lake Street Recovery and Investment and Greenway Safety and Connections. The Council's participation is voluntary and is a forum for communication, coordination, and development of valuable, well-informed recommendations for the reinvestment in and recovery of Lake Street Greenway Corridor. The partnership's work overlaps with the Council's transit and livable communities initiatives. At this time, I would entertain a motion to authorize the chair to continue the Council's participation in the Lake Street Greenway Partnership as renamed and make a reasonable annual fee payment to help support strategic counsel and management of the partnership as described in business item 2020-160. Chair, motion?
Lilligren moves approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Muse.
Thank you, Councilman Muse. I will say, I think that this is a convening of not just public, but private sector and businesses, both small and large, and includes Hennepin County, City of Minneapolis, and others. I think the coordination forum to help this rebuilding project is maybe really critical at this time. Any
Mr.
other
Chair, may I-
discussions, questions?
Yeah,
please.
Mr. Chair, if I may, yeah, thanks. And I just a quick comment how supportive I am of this. I'm really thrilled to hear of your commitment, Mr. Chair, to stay engaged. And as part of the conversations of this group before 1998, as a Phillips West community activist, I was a neighborhood representative starting in 1998 on the Midtown Community Works Partnership. When I got elected to City Council, I took that appointment and held that for 12 years on the Midtown Community Works Partnership. And it is an incredibly successful example of private-public partnerships, especially when I was more at the community level. I was up and in opposition
I'm sorry.
to some of the larger corporate entities that were there. And as a city council member, it was a great forum for figuring out how to work together. And I would just note, even back in 1998, one of the first objectives of the partnership was to reduce crime at Chicago and Lake intersection. And in the first summer of our efforts working with community, corporate partners, public sector, we actually reduced crime something like 80% at Chicago and Lake intersection. And I would just note that along that Midtown section of the Midtown Greenway, there have been hundreds of millions, I could probably safely say billions of dollars of investment, public and private, in transit infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and corporate investment to align a headquarters, the Midtown Exchange, and others. And so it really is example of an effective private-public partnership that's now somewhat 30 years old, 20-some years old. So I'm glad we're still in it.
Yeah, there's a really exciting partnership. I grew up not too far from that neighborhood, and to see this redevelopment in an area that really is an anchor for the community and to be in partnership is a great thing.
This is Councilmember Musa. Also, this is really very important work, and specifically when it comes to making sure that communities of color in that corridor recover and be part of the solution.
Your access code or meeting number phone.
Charlie, are you still-
You're muted. You can press star six anytime to unmute yourself.
Charlie, do you have microphone access?
Hold on a second. I'm just coming in on the phone and I'm getting a little feedback. But if there's any other comments, otherwise Liz can call the roll. Sorry.
Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Chair Zelli. And Chair Zelli. We still can't hear you.
So,
I think I figured it out.
Okay.
I vote aye, and I think the motion carried. Sorry, I've been so good at technology for a year, and then suddenly my systems are falling apart 2 weeks in a row. So I apologize. And thank you, Councilmember Lilligren, for your comments. I heard the first half, but I suddenly lost it. But thank you. Any other? Wait, hold on a second. We now are into information items, and I know that Charles Carlson and Chris Beckworth have been very patient, so with no further ado, we'll give them a chance to talk about the Gold Line, and then we're going to hear about the Rush Line, now called the Purple Line, shortly after that. So Charles and Christine, take it over.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, council members. I'm Charles Carlson, Director of BRT Projects for Metro Transit. We have updates on 2 BRT projects tonight, as you noted. Thank you for the opportunity to share these with the full council as they're moving forward this summer. Combined, these projects represent nearly $1 billion of transit investment along dedicated guideway transit corridors in the East Metro. And both of these projects have been in development for years, while only the first project, the Gold Line, has been led by the council during this time. We have been involved throughout on the Rush Line project as it continues to be led by Ramsey County. These projects are significant collaborative partnerships with counties who lead the planning phases, as well as local communities that partner with us as we implement these lines. The council's commitment to those partnerships are understood well by accomplished professionals we have leading these projects, and it's my pleasure tonight to reintroduce the leaders of these efforts as they give updates on their work. So we'll start with Christine Beckwith, Assistant Director of BRT Projects. Chris leads the Metro Gold Line project, and she has extensive experience working for both Metro Transit as well as MnDOT on rail, bus, and roadway projects. Chris has led the Gold Line project since it transitioned to the council in 2017, and her knowledge of construction and engineering and her experience with FTA New Starts has the council in very capable hands as the project moves forward to complete design and begin construction. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn the floor over to Chris for a Gold Line project update.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Mr. Chair and council members. I've got a brief presentation to update you on the Gold Line project. We can go right into the next slide. This shows the Gold Line alignment. No major changes here since this council would have last seen an update from us. The project is still estimated at $532 million at this time. It is a 10-mile long BRT corridor primarily in bus-only lanes, what we call dedicated guideway or dedicated bus lanes. Frequent all-day service, 21 new stations. It serves the East Metro communities of downtown St. Paul all the way to Woodbury, including Maplewood, Landfall, and Oakdale. It'll have similar amenities to what you see on LRT and existing arterial BRT systems that we have in place and in design and in construction. So it'll have those full amenity stations with fare collection, offboard fare collection, real-time signage, heat, lighting, bike racks, enhanced security, and lots of those similar upgrades that you see on LRT. So we can skip to the next slide. I did want to explain how this differs from our very successful arterial BRT system, like the A line and the C line. Of course, we've had huge success in ridership of those systems, as well as transit-oriented development for those systems as well. And similar to the LRT systems that we have launched here, ridership exceeding expectations and development around those fixed guideway systems really exceeding our expectations as well. So this kind of gets you kind of somewhere in between, where it is still a arterial BRT and it's still a bus, but it is primarily on dedicated guideway. So you see 4 different options here. The Gold Line happens to implement all 4 of these options. In some sections, we are in mixed traffic where there's lower traffic, where there's right-of-way constraints, we might go into mixed traffic. And then there's other alignments shown in the other 3 pictures here, where we can be on the outside of the vehicular lanes, we can be on either side, or we can be down the middle. So this kind of what differentiates it from the arterial system we have, and also the highway BRT, like Orange Line and like Red Line. It's a little bit more like LRT in that it's on dedicated. Next slide, please, which will show our overall schedule. We are currently in the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration's engineering phase. We are working to complete design, and we are demonstrating to the FDA our readiness to receive our full funding grant agreement. So that's kind of what you do during the engineering phase. The design is only one part of it. We want to advertise, finish our design plans, advertise those plans and that construction package for bidders, and then we want to enter that construction phase. And while we're readying ourselves to award a construction contract, hopefully sometime next year, the FTA is evaluating our readiness to do those items and to enter construction. So once we enter construction, it takes about 2 to 3 years, and then followed by revenue service. So next slide. So to get into the engineering phase, the phase that we're currently in, it took us a little bit longer than anticipated, but we were excited to be granted entry into that phase in April of this year. And so this affirms that the project meets the requirements for federal funding. And it also locks in kind of the upper range of the budget, or actually the federal share at that April date. In May, so 1 month later, although it took us a little longer to get into the engineering phase, we were rewarded for all of the additional time and effort we spent developing that scope to get into engineering by being included in President Biden's budget in May. We didn't expect that we would be included. We hoped. We thought there was an outside chance, but we were quite pleased to see that we were one of 2 projects recommended for New Starts funding in federal fiscal year 2022. The other project is in Phoenix. It's the Northwest Extension Phase 2. So that's $100 million recommended for federal fiscal year 2022. And at the same time, we were given a medium-high rating. You need a medium or better rating to be able to advance and receive a grant from the FTA, and we currently have a medium-high. So May was a really great month for us, and really demonstrated the FTA, their staff, their confidence that this project in this region can deliver the Gold Line. I did want to also acknowledge the strong, as Charles mentioned, the strong county partnership we have on this project and how that really reflects through when we meet with our federal partners that we really are ready to move forward with the Gold Line. So next slide. This shows the full funding grant timeline. If you just look across the bottom at the next few steps, as I mentioned, we were included in President Biden's budget in May, but really that budget has to go to Congress next for congressional appropriations. We heard some good news today that it appears that will move forward without any changes from the recommendation. It'll move through that appropriations process. Sometimes they make some adjustments to the president's recommendation. That appears to be moving forward. After those appropriations are made by Congress, which will take most of the rest of this year, the FTA would be ready to allocate those funds. And then after that time is when they would be ready to review our grant application and provide that grant to us sometime next year. Next slide. Some of the main items from 2021, we did advance from 60% to 90% design. And actually during the pandemic, we were at 30% design when we all started to work remotely. And we will take this project all the way to 100% design this fall, still working remotely. So going from 30% to 100%, all working from our living rooms and our home offices. It's been quite a journey, but really we've stayed on schedule and it's worked pretty well. We did remove joint development from the scope, and I believe one of our last updates to this council, we were talking about the Washington County Service Center that was proposed for the 494 Park and Ride site on the Gold Line, all the way to the end at that Woodbury, the end of the line in Woodbury. At this time, we are not going to include joint development in the project. It doesn't mean that Washington County has stopped evaluating options for that service center. In fact, one of the options would be to still locate it at the end of the line, just not part of this project. The other progression is bus propulsion recommendation. We are pleased to continue the electric bus pilot for Metro Transit by including 5 electric buses in the Gold Line scope and the garage charging infrastructure to accommodate those 5 electric buses. This is in addition to the 12 diesel buses we have in our base fleet, and this will allow us to achieve our requirements to open on opening day and deliver that service. Hopefully we have 5 electric buses also carrying passengers on that opening day, but if it takes a little bit of time to implement those, we still can cover it with our base assumption of 12 diesel buses. What we're going to be continuing to evaluate is whether we're assuming 60-foot buses, but we may be able to accommodate the service with 40-foot buses. So we'll be looking at that as well. Last couple of items here is we added a little bit of inflation just because we're getting a little bit later start on construction than we had initially planned. So we thought early 2022, that'll be slipping a little bit to mid 2022. So we've added a little bit of inflation on the tail end of the project to accommodate those additional costs. And then we actually do anticipate a slight reduction in cost. Again, it's currently $532 million, but we hope in the next few months to announce a reduction in cost, which is unusual for these projects. So look for that information soon. The picture actually on the lower right here shows a rendering of a Gold Line station design. So I just wanted to include that as well. That was accomplished between the 60 and 90% design, that first bullet on the top of this slide. Next slide. The engineering phase engagement, we are continuing to acquire right-of-way and engage property owners all along the alignment. So we've got that well underway. Continuing to do community, neighborhood, business organizations engagement. That's obviously been virtual. This past year, we are starting to get out a little bit more, as you can see in some of these photos here. And we are working on a plan for pre-construction engagement. So we want to get out there and let all those construction primary contractors know of the work we have coming, as well as all the DBEs and all of the subcontractors that would be interested in this work. And then the last slide, the looking ahead. We will complete our design and specifications. As I mentioned, that's targeted for early fall. The FTA is continuing their review and recommendations for our project contingency. So we're doing a risk assessment with them probably August or September, and they will let us know what the final level of our contingency, cost contingency, and schedule contingency should be. And then we'll continue that right-of-way acquisition. We're hiring for our construction oversight team. We've begun that process, and we'll continue that process in the coming months, and then continued outreach and engagement. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Christine? Nice job. And when you described the relationship with Washington County and Ramsey, who have been great partners, just everybody should know that the policymakers and the staff of Washington County speak so highly of our staff, and really that's been a part of the reason we've really been able to advance it as well as it has gone. Any questions? Anybody on the Gold Line?
Just really excited about the project and the support that we've gotten from the FTA with the New Starts program. Good job with the staff and everyone that was involved.
And to put even more stories behind it, you know, you think about how we've made great progress in a year of COVID. We've done everything from innovative engagement to an actual FTA oversight tour by taking a virtual bus tour, which kills a bus person like me that could actually do it on the computer. But they did an incredible job kind of showing what this project will be like and the impact it has. And so I think it's amazing that we're at this point, given the year we've just gone through. All right, well, maybe let's get into the Purple Line, formerly known as the Rush Line. And Charles, you might set it up, but we're going to hear from Craig Lamoth, who's our project director for that project. Charles?
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. So next we'll introduce a new project, the Purple Line, also currently known as the Rush Line. And so while the project planning for this project has occurred over several different forms for perhaps up to 20 years, it's now reaching the point of being ready to transition to Metro Transit for implementation. And so as we are preparing for that transition, in May, we actually welcomed the leader of the project, and that's Craig Lamoth, who is our senior project manager, returning to Metro Transit in a new role as project director for the Rush Line or the Purple Line project. And Craig will lead the project through project development, engineering, and construction to revenue service. And we're lucky because Craig is building on a very strong history of similar roles in past LRT and bus capital projects at Metro Transit. And we welcome his return with open arms as he takes the helm of the Purple Line. And with that, I'm pleased to turn things over to Craig.
Thank you, Charles. Mr. Chair, council members, I am excited to be back with Metro Transit for this opportunity to be able to lead this project for the next 5 years after having spent the last 5 years both working as a consultant, supporting the county on advancing this project, as well as in the last 2 years, the last time I was here with Metro Transit, liaising with the county to help them technically and through policy considerations on the project. So let me, without further ado, introduce you to the Metro Purple Line project, formerly known as the Rush Line project. Next slide, please. So this project is very similar to the Gold Line project that Chris just talked about. It is a dedicated Guideway BRT project that'll provide frequent all-day service. There is some differences with the project compared to Gold Line. It's really broken down into 3 segments. Starting in downtown St. Paul from Union Depot, it'll travel through downtown on 5th and 6th Street, sharing actually the Gold Line station that will be built a few years before Purple Line. And then it will traverse up Robert Street, make a connection to Green Line near 10th Street, and then continue on through the Mount Airy area and then along Phelan Boulevard until it reaches Arcade Street, at which time it will then transition into former freight rail guideway, currently home to the Bruce Vento Trail from Arcade Street up all the way to Beam Avenue in Maplewood, near the Maplewood Mall Transit Center. And then as it crosses over 694, it will run on Highway 61 in a new concept for this region, but familiar territory for other BRT projects across the country. This project will operate in what is known as BAT lanes, B-A-T, Business Access and Transit Lanes. So these will be lanes that are special lanes for operating bus and personal automobiles that are attempting to access driveways that happen to be off of Highway 61. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of similarities with Gold Line. That also goes for the anticipated capital cost of this project, roughly between $460 and $470 million, to be funded roughly 50-50 between Ramsey County and the Federal Transit Administration. Has an anticipated operating cost on an annual basis of about $15 million, and is anticipated to serve about 7,000 average daily rides in 2040. But unlike the Gold Line, we do not yet have an official FTA rating for this project. But understanding that process, we anticipate that a rating from FTA on this project would likely be between a medium and a medium high. This project will be submitting to FTA about a year from now for its first official rating. Next slide, please. So the county has been leading the planning and development of this project now for many years. Most recently, between 2014 and 2017, it went through an alternatives analysis to ultimately land on a locally preferred alternative, which is the project that has been advancing for the last 3 years during the environmental analysis phase. The county has been leading the environmental document and is closing in on a final environmental determination from FTA. During this time, they've also been advancing the engineering up to a 25% level of design, as well as doing stationary planning and public engagement throughout that process. Next slide, please. Subsequent phases, really starting later this year into next year and beyond, the council will be leading those phases, which I'll talk about shortly in the subsequent slides. But it's really going to entail entering the project into project development later this year, in which we'll be in that phase for approximately 2 years, followed by about a year of engineering, and ultimately getting to start a construction in 2024, and hopefully revenue service in late 2026. So essentially following a very similar path to Gold Line, but trailing Gold Line by about 2 years. Next slide, please. So right now we're currently in the throes of project transitioning the local lead agency role from the county to the council. We're following a very similar process that has been used for the transition on the past rail projects as well as Gold Line in 2017. So what that means is that there are going to be current in process activities currently being closed out by the county over the next several months. In addition, there'll be new activities started by the council as part of that. Specifically, the county will be completing the current environmental process. They'll be initiating and completing applicable municipal approvals. Then they will be closing out the phase, and probably most importantly, for this upcoming phase, is they will be making a full funding commitment for that next phase. The council will continue to coordinate with the county as the council takes over leadership for the project, and then focusing most of our time here in the near term on preparing the project for entry into the federal program. Next slide, please. So one of the first steps of the transition really comes with this presentation here today is activating the Purple Line and starting the process of rebranding this project as Purple Line and retiring Rush Line. The rebranding will occur throughout the next several months. It'll include that new agreements, procurements, and FTA submittals, many of which will be coming before this body for action, will be led with Metro Purple Line. Metro Transit is also in the process of creating the project website to be hosted by Metro Transit. And then we will be retiring the Rush Line project website hosted by the county, likely by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So the delivery approach for this project will be very similar to the Gold Line project, where we really have a 3-agency implementation team made up of the council, in this case, one county, and the DOT. This builds off that successful collaboration approach that we've had for the last several years on Gold Line. The council will lead the implementation, but the county and MnDOT will have key roles as part of the core team. That will include Andy Gitzloft, who's been leading this project on behalf of the county as their project manager for the last several years. It'll also include Frank Alarcon, who will continue on leading the station area planning aspects of the project, working closely with the design effort. We're also going to be leveraging the experience and knowledge gained over the last several years by the staff working on Gold Line to advance that project. So later this fall, we'll be reopening the Gold Line project office as a shared project office that will accommodate both the staff of Purple Line and Gold Line. And some of the Gold Line staff that have been exclusively Gold Line staff will now support both projects, bringing their expertise to the Purple Line. One of the things that's really different with this project is that the council is assuming leadership of this project at a very different point in time than on any of the past projects. The environmental process will be completed before the council takes the project over. The design level has been advanced to 25%, which typically on past projects has been somewhere in that 2 to 5% design range. Which means many of the key technical issues have already been resolved. Not all of them. Some will need to be resolved going into next year. It'll allow us also, now with the environmental process completed later this year, to start the right-of-way process so that we can start property acquisition about a year from now. It also gives us the opportunity to advance the project during the 24-month PD phase to at least a 60% level of design. Giving greater assurances as we enter the engineering phase based off of what the cost estimate will be at 60%. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of activities going on to kick off the project development phase. Starting with council requesting from FTA in the late summer time frame for entry into the federal program. With the hope that FTA grants the project entry into the federal program by early fall. And as I mentioned, reopening the Gold Line project office as a shared project office also in that early fall timeframe. And then from this point, basically through early winter, we are expecting to be focusing time and attention on recruiting staff to support Purple Line roles and procuring consultant services to support the project, both in the areas of right-of-way, design, and project management. And then in the late winter timeframe, with a full complement of agency staff and consultant staff, we expect to begin advancing the project's design forward from the 25% that it's ending with this phase. And also early next year, we will be forming the project committees for the project development phase, as well as the subsequent phases, committees such as the Corridor Management Committee. Next slide, please. Along with some of the activity that's going to be occurring are going to be several actions that will come before this body for consideration. Coming up next month in August, we are anticipating bringing forward a capital grant agreement for the project development phase with Ramsey County. So this is essentially the commitment of Ramsey County dollars for the next 2 years for the project, as well as a cooperative agreement with MnDOT for their staff support of the project. Later in the fall, early fall timeframe, we'll be bringing forward additional agreements, a master funding agreement and a subordinate funding agreement #1 with MnDOT, as well as a historic preservation memorandum of agreement that really speaks to the mitigation of the project's impacts to historic properties along the corridor. And then later in the winter, subordinate funding agreement number 2 with MnDOT, essentially for MnDOT support in 2022, as well as multiple contract awards. Next slide, please. Be more than happy, Mr. Chair, council members, to take any of your questions on the Purple Line.
Thanks, Craig, and congratulations on your new role. This is really bringing this project to an important phase, and you realize the timeline coming up this year is pretty important. Any questions for Charles, Craig?
Mr. Chair?
Please, Councilmember Vento. And by the way, you're not allowed to recuse yourself from questions and conversations,
Okay,
even
got
though we
it.
are on the Vento train.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shortly after I joined the council, I had a meeting with Charles Carlson about the Rush Line prior to my first involvement with the policy committee. And ever since then, Charles, and subsequently now, both Chris and Craig have been extraordinary sources of guidance and information. And I just can't say enough good things about this team. These 3 people just do great work. And I know that this happens throughout the region, but I just want to do a special shout out to Charles, Craig, and Chris. Thank you very much.
Thanks for saying that. Any other thoughts, questions? Well, that's exciting information. And I think one of the most poignant parts of your presentation, Craig, was looking at that map where it shows all the different colored transitways. And then, of course, all the ABRTs that we're developing. We've got a real system brewing here. So it's really important to think about all the different legs to this incredible effort. So thank you. And of course, the Rush Line, the Purple Line is, each one's important. Well, if there's no other questions or discussion, I think we've accomplished a lot of business today, and thank you for attending. And I want to acknowledge anybody who wants to give any special report or comments. This is a time to do it. So any reports from council members? All right. So how about Mary? Do you have anything?
Mr. Chair, no new reports from RA.
All right. And how about you, Anne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report from the General Counsel.
All right. Thank you. I know we're all busy, even though it's summer. I was promised at the end of a session, things will get really, relaxed. But you know what? We have a lot of balls in the air and a lot of programs. And it's really another reason why it's great to be part of MCCouncil. And congratulations to everybody. And thank you for all of you. We'll see you along transit lines or driveway tours. There's a lot of opportunities to be in a park. Great opportunity this summer to be out in what we do. So with that, we will adjourn and see you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.